Well, welcome to another edition of E.W. Jackson for President. As you can see, got a little bit of change in my background here. I've added the logo and the website for America's Forgotten Children. Check out the website. America's Forgotten Children is a project of STAND, where we're chronicling and documenting the murders of innocent children around the country since the start of the defund and dismantle the police movement started by Black Lives Matter, which is a lying title because Black lives do not matter to them. No lives matter to them. They're a bunch of godless Marxists, and they could care less what happens to anybody. The only thing they care about is their own power. And they had $100 million, which they squandered on stupid stuff like mansions for mansions that were once owned by famous communists. I mean, what a bunch of godless doofs. In the meantime, all these innocent, beautiful children, most of whom are black, some are Hispanic, some there are a couple of white children involved, but these children have been slaughtered all over the country and are being slaughtered all over the country. Just had a spate of murders of young people in Indianapolis, Indiana. I was talking to a friend of mine who's from that area. He said, yeah, it's terrible. It's just terrible. You hear any hue and cry about it? Black Lives Matter or black? No, because who cares? They're not being killed by cops, right? So what does it matter? They're not being killed by neo-Nazis or Ku Klux Klansmen. So what difference does it make? As long as they're being killed by black thugs roaming the streets, terrorizing the neighborhood, that's okay. That's not a problem. So obviously, the black lives don't matter. I mean, the whole thing is it's a joke. America's Forgotten Children. That's what that website is all about. So check it out. I think you will be inspired and encouraged by it. You're going to be hearing more about it as time goes on. Well, they had the clown show last night, which was the debate, and lo and behold, you know what the top story is coming out of that whole debate now? You know what the top story is? Ronna McDaniel needs to resign. Wow, what a revelation. Any of you who've been watching me or following me for a number of years, I mean, I've been calling for Ronna McDaniel's resignation for who knows how long. I was hoping she would be defeated in her last in her last re-election effort by Harmeet, and of course it didn't happen because she's bought off a bunch of the Republican National Committee people who owe her for either their livelihood or for their influence, whatever she's using to buy them off. The woman is just a zero, and she needs to go. But all of a sudden, these candidates now are saying that. And I'm thinking, I'm a candidate. I've been saying that for a long time, but the mainstream media didn't want to hear that from me because I'm too radical. I'm too right-wing. In the meantime, Trump's somewhere else in Miami doing a big event with apparently tens of thousands of people. And I've said it before, you know, it's probably a blessing in disguise I didn't have to participate in that abomination of what they're calling debates about high heels and people's daughters and I mean, come on, yeah. In fact, on that stage, I'd be hard pressed. I'm not saying I couldn't vote for any of the people on that stage, but I tell you what, I'd be hard pressed to vote for most of them. I really would be. I really would be, because I don't trust them. I don't trust them. I believe, and by the way, I don't watch these stupid debates because, again, to me they're a waste of time. When you've got Donald Trump, who's got more support Donald Trump has than all of these other Republican candidates combined. That's how far ahead he is. So it's a joke. But one of the issues that came up, one of the calls for resignation, is not only the severe losses that were suffered in just this past election but also because she chose NBC to do a debate. And of course, there's back and forth about this. But, you know, the reality is liberals, leftists, Democrats would never do that. They would never do that. They would never choose conservatives to preside over a debate. They would never do that. But see, this is the mindset of people who are not conservatives. They're just political hacks. They think that the more you compromise with the left, the better off you're going to be. That's the mindset of Ronna McDaniel. That's why she says, yeah, let's all celebrate homosexual and every other kind of sexual perversion with them in June. Let's join in with the pride, everybody. The Republican chairman is telling Republicans to join in with that abomination, because they think that the more they compromise with this evil, the better off they're going to be. Because you'll get some evil people who will also vote for Republicans, because they say, you know, maybe the Republicans have some evil in them too. So we shouldn't discount them, because they do have some evil with us. So let's vote for them too. I mean, let's at least consider them, because after all, they don't mind letting us know that they share some of our evil. Now, I know that's being a bit snarky, but it's the truth. I mean, it's stated in a sarcastic way, but it's the truth. That's what they think is going to happen, but it's never going to happen. That's what they reason is going to happen, but it's never going to happen. See, the left never compromises. Just think about it. They don't compromise. They're like communists. They are on a long march to take over, and they're not taking any prisoners. While Republicans, many of whom at least claim to be conservative, are always busy asking the question, well, how can we seem to be a little bit more moderate? How can we seem to be a little bit more reasonable? Nobody asked that question of the left. You know, the first thing that should have been required of NBC is, now, before you ask me any questions, let's just get something out on the table. You all are left-wing operatives, and I want you to admit that before you ask a single question. Just admit, just say, look, we are leftists, we're basically Marxists, we're basically we're certainly Democrats, because it's at least close to where we are philosophically. And let's just get that on the table so that we can have an honest debate here, an honest discussion, that's where you all are coming from. And then all of your questions will be seen in that light. So let's just put it out on the table. I mean, you got anti-Semitism increased 388% in 2023, and 60% of all the violent religious attacks are against Jews, and you got NBC asking a question about some incident involving a Muslim. So they pick out one incident, because after all, Islam is the favored religion, right? Because they're victims. Why? Because it's a religion of people of color. So they're victims of Islamophobia, and they're victims of racism as well. See, I mean, that's the way these people think. It doesn't matter where the merits are. It doesn't matter what the substance is. It doesn't matter what's right, what's wrong. It doesn't matter who's doing what. What matters is they're sick, degenerate. What's the word I'm using for? Degenerate. Their sick, degenerate view of the world, imposing that on everybody else. That's what matters to them. I mean, I'm sure you all know this, but what's this guy's name? Crowder, the talk show host, I guess the podcaster, who revealed some of the manifesto of the Nashville shooter, was cited by YouTube, and the material was taken down because YouTube said that, you know, we have to protect our viewers from certain things, blah, 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 blah. me see if I can find that. I didn't put it in my files for this morning. I probably should have. But that spirit of censorship, which is a Marxist idea, that in order to shape the way you want people to think, you must censor what you allow them to hear. So they only hear the things that you want them to hear. They do not hear things that you don't want them to hear, because those things would be bad for them, and we can't let them. People are not capable of assessing information on their own. We must do that for them. And so YouTube took the material down. Because the question would be, for me, is why are they censoring it? Why is anybody censoring this information in the first place? Why can't the American people read this stuff so that we know where this person was coming from? Because I guarantee you, had it been a person who was against black folks, Hispanic folks, Asian folks, Muslims, whatever protected favored group the left has come up with, they would have plastered that all over the place. Racist, or against homosexuals, racist, homophobic, anti-Islam, this person. But no, because this confused, sexually confused, gender confused individual was railing against white people and white privilege, and they don't want anybody to know that there is a growing hysteria and racism against Americans of European ancestry, and they're equating that, of course, with Christianity. So it's also anti-Christian, because after all, everybody knows, right, that Christianity is a white religion, right? Yeah, I mean, everybody knows that but God. Everybody knows that but Jesus, apparently. So they don't want that kind of stuff going out, because after all, white people are privileged. They don't have any problems. They're not, oh my, their safety is not in question. They're oppressors. Christians are oppressors. So you wouldn't want anybody to know that this woman set out to kill these people because they're white and Christian. The American people shouldn't know that. It's too much. This is the spirit of tyranny, and the fact that a private company, so-called, is doing it doesn't change the equation at all, because we know that they're really doing the bidding of a leftist government. See, if I were president of the United States, I would have the Attorney General investigate these people for violating the civil rights of the American people, because you simply do not have a right to deny people the right to be heard and discriminate against them on the basis of content. You just can't do it. Not as a public forum that allows all kinds of opinions. By the way, remember, these big tech people, they have not silenced Hamas. In fact, pedophiles have gotten away with allowing their stuff to be promoted and published, and pedophilia is against the law. Well, you know what I mean. Abuse of children is against the law. I guess one could argue that people having pedophile thoughts is not against the law, but of course, in this day and time when thoughts apparently are in fact illegal, because according to the left, thoughts and speech are inherently violent when you're saying things that they don't like. But of course, it wouldn't apply to pedophilia, because they like that. They think we're liberating children to be as sexual as they want to be. Yeah, I know, folks. I know. I can hear the left's heads exploding, say, how dare he say that, because it's true. We know it's true. We know that that's exactly where they're trying to lead the country. Because that's part of their sexual liberation, you see. What right do we have to tell a child that that child can't have sex with an adult? That child is perfectly capable of making decisions about their gender and about their sexuality. Yeah, right. Folks, that's the madness of the left and the Democrat Party. And frankly, compromising with that mess, it makes you complicit. And as far as I'm concerned, Ronna McDaniel's no better than they are. And all these latecomer Republicans who suddenly now it's in vogue, yeah, let's call for Ronna McDaniel's resignation. I haven't heard anything like that before. Have you? Because, now that Republicans have taken a drubbing in this election, now, do you think it's okay to attack her now? Yeah, I think it's okay. You think? Yeah. Well, let's do it together so that all of us can have cover. Okay. Yeah, Ronna McDaniel should resign. Please. Profiles in cowardice. At any rate, so I mean, it's really, the stuff is of no interest to me. It really isn't. I don't think there's a dime's worth of substance to it. Not a bit. I mean, it's all late and wrong and irrelevant, while Trump is so far out ahead that these people who think they're going to somehow snatch the Republican nomination from him are they're pipe dreaming. Yeah, you know where that comes from, right? Pipe dreaming is what people would do when they smoked opium. So you get the reference. Okay, well, at any rate, I won't go any further with that. I want to talk about a couple things that I think help us kind of understand again where we are in this country right now. And they're not stories that are necessarily top news stories, particularly right now with the war, of course, predominating the news right now. But this situation with illegal immigration is part of the cultural revolution that I've talked to you about. Do you know that right now the Biden administration is planning to use airports as migrant camps? Apparently they're already doing that in Chicago with Pete Buttigieg. And again, have you all heard me talk about the background of Pete Buttigieg? I know this doesn't necessarily mean that Pete Buttigieg is what I'm about to tell you about his father, but I think he is. Pete Buttigieg's father, Joseph Buttigieg, who died, I think January a year ago. I think he died in January of 2021, if I'm not mistaken. But at any rate, he had been at Notre Dame for 40 years. He was the founder of the International Gramsci Society. Antonio Gramsci is one of the most renowned communists since Karl Marx. And a lot of people swear by his theories because he's the one who came up with the theory of cultural revolution, the theory of you don't have to fire a gun in order to take over a nation. You can do it by subverting the nation's values and supplanting those values with Marxist values, and you can take the nation without firing a shot. He called it establishing a new cultural hegemony, Antonio Gramsci. Well, Joseph Buttigieg founded the International Gramsci Society, which is basically an international society meant to advance the thinking, the writing of Antonio Gramsci. Again, I think probably second to, other than those people who actually had leadership like well, I'm thinking of Stalin and Vladimir Lenin, and Mao Zedong, people like that who actually led countries. But Antonio Gramsci never led a country. He's from Italy, and he never became leader of Italy. In fact, he was put in prison at one point for his communist activities. But again, he is one of the most influential communists other than Karl Marx. And I dare say the most influential communist who never held an office, who never served in any kind of leadership role in a nation. And that's who Joseph Buttigieg determined to give a significant part of his life promoting and upholding. A renowned communist. That's Pete Buttigieg's heritage. That's his legacy. So Pete Buttigieg ain't nothing but a glorified communist. But you know, they've learned, here again, when you read the eulogy or you read the obituary of Joseph Buttigieg, there's no mention of that. And yet that was a very significant part of his life. But it's cleaned, it's cleaned up, it's whitewashed. Because, of course, that would lead you to say that the man was a communist. He was a communist. Who in the world would devote themselves to the writings of Antonio Gramsci, who's not a communist? I mean, that would be like me devoting myself to the writings of Mao Zedong. Why would I do that? I despise the man and everything he represented. Why in the world would I spend my life? Why would I create the Mao Zedong International Society? And say, oh, no, but I don't agree with Mao Zedong. That's where Pete Buttigieg comes from. And they're busy trying to bring these people who have been imbued with a whole lot of South American and Central American political craziness and leftist garbage, bring them into our country, matriculate them in, ultimately get them to vote. And what's the party that represents communism? The Democrat Party. I mean, of course, they're not going to call themselves communists, but they are. And they're Marxists. Okay? Communism is no longer in vogue. Communism with a small c. They're not part of the Communist Party apparatus, but they don't need one because they've got the Democrat Party to be the communists. So look out as you travel through your airports, because the likelihood is, if the Biden administration has its way, that all these thousands and tens of thousands coming across our border every day are going to end up camped out at your airport. You all know that Rashida Tlaib was censored for basically using this phrase from the river to the how's it go? Let me find it. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. I think they're talking about the Mediterranean Sea. But from the river to the sea. And it's really a kind of Holocaust-like statement, because what they were talking about is wiping the Jews off the face of the earth from the river to the sea. It's a Holocaust-like statement. And they've censored her for it. Now, censure, censure, C-E-N-S-U-R-E, is not the same as censoring, C-E-N-S-O-R. She's censured because they believe that she said something that is beneath the dignity of the House or violates the rules of the House, and therefore she's been censured for doing that. But that doesn't mean she can't continue to speak out. I support her right to do it. I mean, she sounds as stupid as a rock, and just as full of hatred and venom, and just as demonic as she can be. I mean, she is definitely the wicked witch of, where's she from? I think she's from Michigan, isn't she? But she's definitely the wicked witch of that region, that area. And so, fine, let her have her say. I'm not saying on the floor of Congress. Congress has a right to determine what may and may not be said. I mean, you can't get on the floor of Congress and call somebody a bunch of profane names. That's out of order. You can be stopped from doing that and censured if you do it. But she's going to still have her freedom of speech and still have a right to say. That's the nature of the country we live in. But you know what? I'm glad for it, because the more she talks, the more the American people realize just how evil the woman is. And look, and those who aren't supporting her, they're with her. I mean, those Democrats who are taking cover now because of all that Jewish money that they're looking forward to, and because they have a lot of Jewish voters in New York, they just want to placate them. But they're not for the Jewish people. They're not for Israel. The Democrat Party is not for the Jewish people, and they're not for Israel, because that's not in keeping with their worldview. And I tell you what, if the Jewish people, if Israel, the Jewish people, talk about Jewish Americans, ever stop giving to the Democrat Party, you'd see a turn that was the most dramatic perhaps you've ever seen in politics, because they don't like them anyway. Barack Obama doesn't like Jews. Barack Obama doesn't care about Israel. He never has. He was always a closet anti-Semite. Just like his spiritual father, Jeremiah Wright, and apparently one of his friends, or certainly the best friend of his spiritual father, Louis Farrakhan. Louis Farrakhan and Jeremiah Wright were just like that. And that's who Barack Obama sat under for 20 years. Barack Obama's he's a classic, quiet anti-Semite. He does not like Jewish people. He does not like Israel. Or maybe he does not like the Jews. I'm not, because he might have, people that he associates with that he feels fine about, but he does not like Israel. He does not like the Jewish people. And I knew that from the very beginning, because I knew the atmosphere that he came out of. And remember, being black, growing up in the black community in the ghetto, I heard all the canards and all of the garbage spewed against Jewish people. I mean, anti-Semitism in the black community is very, very, very real. And very few people will speak up against it. Very few. But at any rate, so she's just a monster, because she needs to be redeemed. She's still a human being. She's a monstrous human being, but she still needs to be redeemed. I need to add that caveat. What happened to my background? My background's gone again. But I need to add that caveat, because, of course, we don't hate these people. We hate what they represent. We hate what they stand for. Well, you know what? That's a good alarm system, isn't it? Tell me I need to wrap it up. I already talked about Google censoring Steven Crowder. So Ohio students are walking out of in a particular community, walking out because they're protesting against this whole transgender bathroom deal. Good for them. So students are standing up. Here's one other thing I wanted to mention. Oh, by the way, this woman in Virginia, the porn star candidate, Susanna Gibson. Now, here's the interesting thing. The Republican establishment has basically just disowned me. I mean, basically treated me like trash. Here's a woman who's having sex online, a Democrat having sex online for money, to raise money. And you know what? Democrats never denounced her. Now, some kept their distance, but you didn't have any who said that is unacceptable, that is terrible, we can't have her. Not a single one. If the devil ran as a Democrat, Democrats would say, well, you know what? He's a pretty good guy. And the devil, by the way, does run as a Democrat every election. But she did lose the race. Thank God she lost. But do you know this woman lost by only 48 to 51%? 900 and some votes. 900 and some votes out of about 35,000 votes cast. 900 and some votes. And you have to ask the question, almost half the people voted for her. You see what I mean about a cultural revolution? Almost half the people said, I don't care that she goes online and has sex with her husband for money. That doesn't matter to me. I want somebody like that representing me in the legislature. The person clearly has no moral framework at all that anybody would recognize. And yet you got almost half the people, and this is in Virginia, my home state, almost half the people voting for this vixen. We are in a cultural revolution, folks, because you know there was a time when something like that came out, regardless of what party you belong to, you're done. Everybody denounces you. Everybody turns their back as a candidate. Now, as a human being, like I said, she needs redemption too. But as a candidate, people, no, I don't want you in the legislature. Your character is of such a low quality, so despicable, so base, so depraved. I don't want you anywhere near the seat of power. But oh no, there's half the people say, yeah, she's great. I told you Louise Lucas, who is thank God she's not my state senator, but she's a state senator who's not far from me, happens to be a black woman. But talk about the wicked witch of the East. Woo! When this happened, she got excited and said, "Oh, that she's going to make a great, candidate, and we're going to raise a lot of money." Yeah. But then again, consider the source. Louise Lucas owns not one but two marijuana stores here in Virginia. Not one but two. So she's also a drug dealer. Yeah, they're dressing it up as it's medical marijuana, but that's a joke. That's a joke. The woman is a drug dealer, and she's a state senator. So no wonder she would gravitate to somebody. I heard this woman's name is Susanna Gibson. No wonder she would gravitate to somebody like Susanna Gibson and say, "Yeah, she's great. A drug dealer and a porn star. Perfect, right? Perfect match." But she lost the race by 900 some votes. So at least a little bit better than half the people in the district said, "Oh no, we're not having her as our representative. That cannot be allowed to happen." But I'll tell you what, folks, it was close. It was close. Just a shift of about 1.5%, and she would be in. Whew. We are in the middle of a cultural revolution. Here's the last thing I want to point out. This is not a story that's prominent in the news either. But remember when I talked to you about the 150-car pileup down in Louisiana because of that thick fog that descended and people couldn't see each other and they crashed? And I said, to me, that was a metaphor for where America is right now, that we are in a thick moral fog, and there's only one way it can end, and that is in disaster. The fog's got to lift. The light's got to penetrate. The heat of the gospel of Jesus Christ has got to break through all that so people can see clearly where they really are and see how much trouble they're in, how much danger they're in, how close they are to cataclysm. Well, I said that was a metaphor for where the country is. I'm interested in this story about Kat Von D, who I, by the way, never heard of before she became a Christian. She's apparently a tattoo artist. A lot of people have, but I'm telling you, I guess I heard of her maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago about this story about her becoming a Christian when she first began to announce this. And she's apparently a famous tattoo artist and fashion mogul. Again, I don't follow this stuff, so I'd never heard of her, Kat Von D. But to me, she is kind of a metaphor for what needs to happen in America. So let me just share a little bit of this with you. I'm going a little over, but let me share a little bit of this with you. She said she began to wake up during the time that Antifa was holding protests at the mayor's office 3 doors down, and they were threatening to throw Molotov cocktails and that kind of thing. And she says, quote, "I started kind of like reevaluating and kind of going down the list of what I'm doing with my life. And it got to the part of my spirituality, and that's when I started rethinking a lot of things." And she said, "My husband and I looked at our Rolodex of friends, the ones that are dictating their life through tarot card reading, occult practices, witchcraft, palm reading. She said they're making their decisions through this. She said that the most broke people, most of them are single. They don't have stability. She said either financially or with love. She says there's drama and dread and doom and gloom. She said, and I was one of them. So then I looked around at my Christian friends and I'm like, they're not perfect by any means, but I want what they have. She said, I love the light that I saw in them. Man. Wow. I love that. I love that. I love the light that I saw in them. Now this woman is engaged in witchcraft. She's a tattoo artist, and we'll get into all that, but she all the dark arts, this is what she's into, but Christianity is breaking through in her heart. Now see, that's why I always have the caveat, as bad as these people are, we love them, and what we want for them is what has happened for Kat Von D. And I hope this is real, but it does seem to be very, very real. She says she now feels like a whole new person, a better mom, a better wife. She said, I feel like I'm the best wife and mother I can be because of the changes I've had. Said it's like a deprogramming has taken place. Said things I used to find attractive are disgusting to me now. Said it's like I wish I could put into words how amazing those changes are. Man, this stuff just thrills me, because that's what this is ultimately all about, isn't it? The mission of my church: save souls, save families. She said her soul's now saved, her family is better, save the nation. This is what the nation needs, because like she was, the nation is caught in confusion, in all kinds of ideas and principles that are nothing but darkness. All this stuff about abortion, how important abortion is, and we've got to preserve abortion. I mean, it's the murder of a human being, and people want to celebrate it and advance it and call themselves heroes because they facilitate the death of a human being. And, I heard a discussion about that on a news program today, and by the way, by people who call themselves pro-life, and they never said what I just said to you. They were busy doing what Republicans do. Well, and I understand, because I knew a woman who was raped, and I knew a woman who was victim of this, and I understand how private a decision it is, and I understand that they don't want. I'm pro-life, but. And the left just licks their chops and says, you know what, we got them. We got them. They're with us. They'll never stop this. She sold her home in Los Angeles, moved to another location, I think in Indiana. And by the way, threw away all of her witchcraft and magic books, saying, quote, they no longer align with me. Quote, I just don't want to invite any of these things into our family's lives. Wow. What a dramatic turn, right? That's what America needs, folks. That's what America needs. I mean, she went from being way over in darkness and thinking she had it all together to now realizing, looking back and saying, the things that I used to find attractive are disgusting to me now. That's what America needs. So many Americans find abortion attractive. We need an awakening so they would find it disgusting. So many Americans think, oh, well, what's wrong with a guy showering with women? And what's wrong with a guy playing on women's sports? They find that attractive. And we need such a change, a sea change in the cultural thinking of our country, that they say, how could I have even thought that? That is disgusting. That's sick. To put girls in a situation where they have to watch some guy shower. And he's some guy who claims to be a woman, but he's still sexually attracted to men. Yeah, that's part of this game. Like one guy who's running in the Olympics right now, I read this story earlier, but he says, just because I have, he didn't use the word genitalia, but I'll use the term because it's, I think, a little bit more acceptable. Just because I have genitalia doesn't mean I'm not a woman. I mean, in America, you got America's all of this. That's right. That's right. Yes, that makes sense. Right. And we need people to turn around like Kat Von D has and say, the things I used to think were attractive, I now find disgusting. And you know why they're disgusting? Because God says they're disgusting. Not because it's my opinion or yours, but because God says they're disgusting. Well, folks, sorry that my screen is gone, but again, standamerica.us for my nonprofit Stand, americasforgottenchildren.com for a project of Stand that is basically documenting the murders of these children throughout our inner cities. Thecall.org. If you want to learn more about my church, you'd like to visit us at 943 Canal Drive at 11 a.m. on Sunday mornings. And what am I leaving out? Oh, well, and of course, ewjacksonforpresident.com. If you'd like to make a contribution, you'd like to say a word of encouragement. I was talking to a dear friend who's head of the National Association of Christian Lawmakers, Jason Rapert, and he was so very, very encouraging to me, and I really believe in what he's doing. He's trying to pull together Christian legislators from around the country to begin to work together and collaborate to try to save this country. And he was saying, you know, I've contributed to your campaign, and I believe in you, and who knows what God may want to do with that. So I would ask you to be prayerful and think about it, see what the Lord is saying to you. And if you are so inclined, make a contribution to our campaign. Give me a word of encouragement. I'm not out of it yet. Okay? I am not out of it yet. And I don't know whether I ever will be. Who knows? I may end up being president of the United States. You know, with men, things are impossible, but not with God. All things are possible with God, and all things are possible to them that believe. So in the meantime, you stand up, step up, speak up, refuse to back up, because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit, because we are on God's side.